the anti-apartheid icon. And former President Olusegun Obasanjo denies claims that he hates the people of the Niger Delta. This is Plus Politics. I am Mary Anna Cole. World leaders mourn South Africa's anti-apartheid hero and Nobel Peace Laureate Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who died yesterday at the age of 90. President Buhari said his death had further created a void in the world in dire need of wisdom, integrity, courage, and sound reasoning. He recalled the historic role that Archbishop Tutu played in the fight against minority rule and during physical assaults.
Yeah, I mean, it's massive. The fact that Desmond Tutu, popularly called the Arch, died at the age of 90, and yet people still say they miss him. That the evil apartheid rule and policy. Exactly what one of the more popular streets in South Africa, where Nelson Mandela and Archbishop Desmond Tutu did stay. So it's massive, and you're right. If you would call two most popular Africans, one would be Nelson Mandela, and the two would be Desmond Tutu. And no small piece that, interestingly, here recommended that Mandela join the elders then, because it was his thinking that if Mandela invited anyone, the person had to have a good reason for not being able to attend that. So big feeling. And the fact that Archbishop Desmond Tutu, before the end, the fight to end apartheid, he went to jail several times. He wasn't just speaking behind the pulpit, calling for an end to injustice against his people. He'd also, led from the front in the protests that happened, and he was a key figure in all of those major events that happened in the 60s and 70s. Leading up to Nelson Mandela's release. And even the transition period is one of the bloodiest periods. See him.
The apartheid regime. Many people would say
the revered Archbishop Desmond. If you remember, there was this clarion call for people who abused and violated the rights of people during the apartheid regime, and by so doing, I'm making specific reference to the white oppressors to be punished, to be made to face the law. But people like Desmond Tutu saw beyond his time and preached for forgiveness. This is a man who embraced forgiveness, preached forgiveness to the chair of the reconciliation for his failure to recommend very punitive measures against the white oppressors. But we all know that his decision to go against the popular will of the people then and rather advocate for peaceful coexistence happening all around us. In Uganda, we have Yoweri Museveni, who has been a tyrant, arresting almost everybody in the opposition. You go to Zimbabwe, even after the death of Robert Mugabe and the apprentice rubber stamp, and the country is ruled at the wishes and command of a single individual, Paul Kagame. It is replicated across the continent. Go to Togo, virtually no opposition. Alassane Ouattara comes to power on the backdrop of a civil war that was triggered by the refusal of his successor, Laurent Gbagbo, to leave power. And after he inherits the throne, he does the...
African leaders are not necessarily, or have not necessarily learned anything from the life of the Archbishop, even in his passing. Because, I mean, we could add more and more names. Agogo and I can just continue to reel out the names of African leaders who may not necessarily be leading their countries aright. So I'm asking, does this not mean that maybe our leaders, and maybe even the people who are their followers, are not necessarily interested in, pivoting some form of change for the continent, or redirecting the continent?
I believe that the ordinary people on the continent, especially, definitely are concerned. Few of them to Botswana, they are doing so well. Rwanda is doing so well socioeconomically. Ghana has been the star with regards to democratic credentials and socio-economic development since a return to multi-party democracy in 1992. However, same
a whole kettle of fish on its own. We can go on and on and on about that. But let me quickly go back to vice presidential aspirant Tunde Bakare speaking a lot lately. We've seen the likes of the senior pastor of the House on the Rock Church, Paul Adefarasin, speaking a lot. We also see a Reverend Father, what's his name now? The priest from Kadu's religious leaders also coming into the
faced lengthy jail terms. Some of them were killed. Oppressors and those who victimized the people had signed a deal where, say, if they said, we did X, Y, and Z in return for admitting to the guilt and saying we're sorry, they were going to be exculpated from any crime and charges. Of course, there's a lot of criticism around that. Interestingly, I spoke with Bishop Matthew Hassan Kuka, who is the
Bishop Kuka. I was trying to remember his name. Yes.
Yeah, who is the Catholic bishop of Sokoto Diocese a couple of days ago on his impressions of Archbishop Desmond Tutu. He'd been to South Africa too because Nigeria had through Kayode Fayemi, who during that time the governor of Ekiti State, who was an activist then. Got the report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and then suddenly realized same with the frustration Desmond Tutu had with the fact that many of those guys who were responsible for the injustices that happened during the apartheid were not going to be convicted. The same thing happened with us. The people who were responsible for the atrocities, the gross violation of rights, the killings during the military era in Nigeria never appeared. In fact, some of them did not even appear before the tribunal. I think it was only Olusegun Obasanjo, because he was incumbent president then, that he appeared before the tribunal. 20 years down the line, you look at what has happened, whether the rights in Nigeria have put in any sort of way is happening. So yes, there's the legacy. People try to replicate what happened with the Reconciliation Commission in Nigeria, for example, and unfortunately, the Okucha panel, the report was never followed through. Many of the people who were found guilty for things, who were indicted for many of the crimes that happened, never went or found themselves in court because somebody went to court and then they could put a seal on it and nothing could happen afterwards. Or other countries like Rwanda did try out their own system. They called it Gacaca, and they did take a number of cases. I remember with Gacaca was a local system where people could come out and then talk with the oppressors and say, this person did this against me. And the locals, unfortunately, I hear people talk about this.
Be allowed to express their feelings. The people have to be able to get some form of dividends of democracy or governance. Let's go back to what you said, Michael. You've been rubbished, and I think it's a few days before the end of the year. We still haven't heard anything. It doesn't look like anywhere on the radar that the government is going to do anything about it and the blood that was shed, because it seems like they're trying to rubbish it. So how do people, and this is not just in Nigeria, this is ditto for everything. We saw what happened during the elections in Uganda. We saw what Bobby Wine had to go through, how his wife. Are we also not helping to paint the continent black, especially our leaders?
That's an interesting assertion. You see, the problem we currently have in Africa is that we have a very youthful population who wants more, who want to see things happening in Africa as witnessed in other parts of the world. And these young people are being led by very old people who are out of touch with reality, basically above or beyond the age threshold of this youthful population. So the kind of people leading Africa have no idea what governance is in the 21st century, what science, technology, social innovations are in the 21st century, and the kind of people being ruled, majority of whom, who of course are the youths, also want to see happening on the continent what is happening elsewhere in North America, in Europe, even in other parts of Asia and Latin America, North America and Central America. Why is this picture not being shown to the whole world rather than images of war-torn countries in Africa? But who are the very people responsible for these images? To the best of my knowledge, when innocent young presidential elections, they introduced the Marshall Plan to basically reconstruct, refinance Europe that had been ravaged by war.
Okay.
So Nigeria for the sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria and South.
Time is not our friend, but I want to say thank you to Foreign Affairs Editor Agogo Obo and International Relations Analyst Michael Nketia. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Thank you all for staying with us. We'll take a short break now. But again, how many people are really interested or even have the knowledge about what's happening within the budget? We hear about the budget hearings, the presentations that are being made, but the average Nigerian is worried about the price of food in the markets, the price of gas that might be 10,000 naira next year, and all the other simple things. So which Nigerian, other than you and I and a couple of us who are interested in what's happening within the budget, would be questioning all of these things under these ambiguous subheads?
The middle class that has continued to keep quiet in the face of subscriptions and different things to fund a lavish lifestyle. It's a matter of
you might hear people say one thing today and then review their position tomorrow because they necessarily have to keep adjusting their position to fit whatever the lie was that they told the day before.
We have a regime, a government, if you prefer that, in this country today, that has no regard for human rights. And the government is not pretending about this. NSAS protests happen because of failure of governance. I like to stress these points at every opportunity that I have. They wouldn't have been NSAS if we had a responsible government. If we had a government that lived up to its responsibilities. People came out to protest because there's vacuum in leadership. The issue of police brutality, the issue of extrajudicial killing of Nigerians has not been addressed till date. And you see till now, with all that has happened, Nigerians...
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo has denied claims that he hates oil-producing states in Nigeria. Well, joining us to break that down and discuss it is public affairs analyst Sonny Maduka, Niger Delta rights activist Ankyo Briggs, and legal practitioner Tamuna Williams. Thank you very much, gentlemen and lady. Happy holidays.
Thank you very much for having me. Happy holidays.
All right. So let's go into the conversation. Let's just dive right in. This has become a war of words of sorts between the entire country, but then he keeps mum over the issue of gold in Zamfara State. So, Ms. Ankyo Briggs, I'd like for you to start with that, because I know that this is a sore point for the people of the Niger Delta.
Yes, thank you for having me again. Well, I mean, Chief Ike Clark expressed the feelings of the... I was a participant on that program. He came late to the program. The gentleman, the secretary of the John National Congress, was expressing the position of the Johns. And he started banging on the table and shouting, literally, just behaving very unstatesmanlike, unelderly-like. And what really just boils down to the fact that the Niger Delta people, and particularly the Jaws, whole community, because you're looking for 7 youths, that's over and above the call of what he was supposed to do. So yes, I agree with Chief Ike Clark that we feel that Obasanjo has a very special to a whole people, and very irritating that he can't do that in Zamfara and so many other places where people are mining resources that belongs to Nigeria, as he claims.
Let me come to you, Doctor. I will come back to you, Ms. Briggs, because I'm more interested in knowing why you think that there's that hatred. But Dr. Maduka, you obviously people, or he was just making a case as to the fact that...
But I don't think they love the people of Niger Delta. There's a difference between loving a region and loving a people. So Obasanjo saying it is not a new thing. All of them love Niger Delta because of the resources. So not because they love the people. Because if they love the people, they will have known what the people are suffering right now. Let me give you some example. If Obasanjo said they love the people or the Niger Delta, who are those people at the helm of our favor NNPCs today? Are they Niger Deltans? Who are those at the board of Niger Delta Are they Niger Delta people? If you look at the percentage of those people who own the oil blocks, 99% of them are outside Niger Deltarians. So for another mock at River State. So what are the government doing? Yeah, they love it. You see, when Nigerians talk, especially the leaders, when they tell you that Nigeria is indispensable, is indissoluble, there's nothing nice they are talking about the Niger Delta. Oh, that's the only thing that's keeping Nigeria together. Nothing else. Which of the leaders are able to say, oh, because Niger Deltas are suffering, let's do something for the Niger Deltas? I give you an instance. In Canada, when the Quake people decide to say, look, enough is enough, there was a consensus. There was a national conference where they said, okay, look, we have seen your suffering. Let's see what we can do. But everything to be nationalized.
Okay.
Just like he mentioned, it's not only Zamfara that has gold. We have a lot of mineral resources in the north. How many of them have been able to
backpedal a bit? Just as Dr. Maduka has said, and I'm talking about the Buhari administration, promised that they were going to make the issue of the cleaning up of the Ogoni axis because of the, the oil spill by Shell. They were going to make it front and center. As we speak, I do not know what the situation of things are.
My take on the matter, Germany, look at Russia. You see, Nigeria is one of the funniest places where people come and express views that they don't even believe in. Now, let me take the first point. For Obasanjo, former military ruler, first of former second in command to Murtala, then head of state, then he became president. He chose a successor in Yar'Adua. After Yar'Adua, he chose Jonathan. After Jonathan, he supported Buhari. Obasanjo has literally chosen almost all the leaders who had led Nigeria. Now, the common denominator is that from my perspective, from what I've read of him, he does not have any, okay? You have a Niger Delta Basin Authority. Now, you can take a media tour of what I did, community by community, village by village, word by word. As I speak, I live in my quiet house without a policeman. Look, Obasanjo hates Niger Delta. It's not a news, and it's of no consequence. Now, coming to our elder statesman, Clark. Look, Elder Clark had his own penalty shot. Let me take you back to the UEFA Champions League, where Terry took the penalty. He had been a minister. He had been a father. The question would be, all these years, what people has he groomed? What philosophy has he entrenched? So that when it's no longer there, do we have that unity of purpose, that vision, that philosophy? I think we don't have it. I'm coming to that point. Now, generally speaking, Japan does not have really issue of natural resources. Are you aware? Even the water they drink is imported after Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But Japan is developing. So our problem is when it was sunk into the amnesty program. The program was not designed to bring our boys to become entrepreneurs. People went in there and developed themselves. Today, the boys are still back.
We're seeing him rightly.
Come out so that Nigeria could have an opportunity to keep to the promises that Yar'Adua was making at that time. But my involvement, therefore, was not part of participating either in training or in running the program or whatever. But yes, I was a key participant in making sure that our people came out of the creeks. Having said that, look.
So have they come out of the creeks? That's the question. Because he's saying that nothing has really changed.
Well, of course they came out. Of course they came out of the. Of course they came out of the creeks. Somebody like my brother, who is now King, Ateka Mission, and
yeah. Can I quickly just come in there? Talking about owning the commission. What's Professor Ponde? He's from the Niger Delta.
Definitely. Oh, definitely.
He's from the Niger Delta.
And on what purpose are they appointing them? You cannot appoint people that have failed in government elections, that have failed in senatorial elections. You now compensate them in the name of NDDC and come back and blame the Niger Delta people for not holding the people accountable. Holding who accountable? Who held Obasanjo accountable? Obasanjo was owing. Obasanjo refused to pay the total money due at the time it was due to the NDDC.
Okay.
People should find out how much money is owed the NDDC. Okay. Today, look at what is happening. We are in a government today that has handled the NDDC worse than any other government has handled the NDDC. Look, the failure of development of the Niger Delta, people take from us and pretend to give. You can't take what is mine and give it back to me and
because
say,
of time, I want to quickly
given to us. Given to us for what? It's my money. How are you giving it to me?
Okay. All right. Let me, because of time, I want to make sure I get everybody's input. Back to you, Doctor. She's made an interesting point, and we've delved into the NDDC issue that you brought up that I wanted to push back on. But let's talk about the sincerity, because she's also touched on that you cannot develop the Niger Delta from Abuja. You cannot try with, but when they get to those offices, we do not necessarily see them trying to develop the Niger Delta. Again, are Nigerians the root cause of their own problems, just as the legal practitioner had mentioned in the beginning?
First of all, Nigerians are our own problem. We are our own problem. Like the lady said, the major problem we have in this country is structural. You can't just bring out a project without giving out the process and the procedure. Most of the time we wake up only to hear a project has been inaugurated in Nigeria without proper feasibility study, to ask for accountability from their leaders. So at the end of it, we end up blaming one another. So the Nigerian system is all about blaming. We're not looking at the fundamental problem. The police are there for their own stomach infrastructure. Just like the chairman said, how many of them could be able to point out what they've done? I am here in the village in a system whereby the splitters kills the weakest. So that is the problem. Okay. Our constitution has a problem. We need to go back to drawing board, and I think that was what Clark was drawing OBJ into. Let's go back and look at where we have messed up. Okay. See how we can correct all the imbalances. You cannot come to my house and collect all my resources, and then you give me a peanut, and in that peanut you are telling me not to talk. Okay. You slap me even with my what are you talking about?
That's a whole kettle of fish on its own. That's a discussion for another day.
Niger Delta people that can hate NNPC. So these are the problem.
Well, Doctor, that's a conversation for another day. But finally, because we're almost out of time, Vice Terminal Williams, let's look at the legal perspective here. One of the things that, of course, the elder statesman was also, pointing to is going back to restructuring, talking about regional government and all of that. But the question I always ask is, are we just talking about...
You see, law, essentially. From 1960 to 1963, there was an entrenched principle of derivation, where 50% of resources goes to the people who own it, okay? In that time, of course, our elder statesmen later properly encapsulated that the West and President Jonathan had a conference to discuss this, So my solution that law essentially cannot cure our problem.
Okay.
The current constitution, if well followed, can deliver. Today, governors have 13% derivation, okay? Are the governors accountable to the people?
We have to go.
Right? As I speak to you, okay, we can't talk of one single project that NDDC has done in Okrika that can bring about sustainable development. So my summary is that, look, we need to sit down together, have